Welcome to the Third Generation Wrestling Podcast with your hosts, Eric and Rob.
Welcome back. It's Third Generation Wrestling Podcast, 3GW. I'm your host, Mr. Eric, joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob. What's going on?
Not too much. Well, there's a lot going on, but, this is a wrestling podcast, so we'll leave it at that.
Well, we'll leave it at that, but I do feel like it wouldn't be right of us not to even just mention briefly what's going on in the world. I mean, yeah, we primarily come on here to escape the world, but I think it's also important to just, so listeners know we're not being just ignorant. We're not ignoring all the stuff that's going on. Obviously, with the death of George Floyd and a few others recently, the nation, us as a nation, we've responded, to put it lightly, and not the most effective way. I don't believe in rioting and looting and destroying public property that you don't own, and property that you, as a consumer, as the consumer, you're looting and burning places that where you shop. So it doesn't make sense. I get the protest. It makes sense. I like that, and bring attention. I like the fact that big brands like Nike, athletes are speaking out. White people in the public eye are speaking out against this. The good cops are speaking out against these terrible acts. And it is terrible that it's sad that it has to come to this. Somebody lose their life on video. And I'll leave my thoughts with this. You know, it's like Will Smith said, racism hasn't changed. It's just being filmed. So, your thoughts, Rob, before we dive into our retrospective this evening?
Well, since you went ahead and broached the subject, I'm just very saddened that we're still dealing with these kind of issues in 2020 America. And I'm not going to get on the big soapbox, but George Floyd was murdered. Let's just say it. He was murdered. It was uncalled for. The man was begging for his life, begging for air. Even after he was motionless, this Derek Chauvin, the police officer who murdered him, kept his knee on his neck for 3 minutes after this man was non-responsive. From what I've heard, is that his pulse was taken. There were 3 other officers on the site. He was cited for using a fake $20 bill. He was unarmed. This isn't the first story like this. And what I'm hoping is that from now on, when the black community says, look, this is what's happening, maybe people will believe it. It'd be nice if there doesn't have to be a video of it for people to believe it. We know what's happening, but there's just other parts of America who doesn't know what's happening. And this isn't about black versus white. I have white friends who I love, white family members who I love. So this is right and wrong. It's not black and white, but there is a different experience that black people have in relation to the police and to justice than white people have. That's just a reality. That's not an indictment on anyone. But what I love is that we see these protests, and we see people of all colors protesting because they do recognize it's right and it's wrong. Like you, I do not approve of the looting. I understand the anger and the frustration and the pain. I get all of that. But the looting, the rioting, that's just not the way. Peaceful protests, dialogue, and most of all, and this is not a political podcast, but the most fundamental and the most powerful weapon that we have is our right to vote. Mm-hmm. So For those of you who are 18 and older, if you are not registered to vote, vote. And don't just vote in your presidential elections. Vote for your local sheriff. Vote for your governors. Vote for your congressmen, congresswomen. That is the most, it might not seem like a lot, but as individuals, that's actually the most powerful weapon we have is our right to vote. So use it.
Exactly. That is the most powerful weapon. And before we get into Survivor Series, we're joined by special guest, frequent on the show, Mr. MJ Book. How you doing, man? I know before we came on here, we were talking a little bit about it. You yourself witnessed personally with your own two eyes, out of your, from where you live, the riots and the people marching and stuff. So, just real quick, your thoughts on what's going on.
Well, as always, it's great to be on here. It's great to be on here again with you, Mr. Eric, Mr. Rob. And we would completely be remiss if we didn't discuss what was going on. We all know that this is a disgusting thing that occurred to George Floyd. Just flat out, he was murdered. I support everyone who is out there speaking their mind, voicing their opinions, voicing for change. What I don't agree with is people throwing rocks, starting fights, brawling. There's as you said, I'm a few blocks away from where there was a riot downtown here in Des Moines. Just the other day, a couple blocks away, another direction, they went into a Hy-Vee and just destroyed windows and stole stuff, and it's it's despicable, it's disgusting, and it insults what the message that's trying to be brought across. But I support everyone going out there, voice your opinion, say what you want to say, what you have to say, but don't degrade that message by looting and violence and stealing. When you do that, you're polluting the message you're trying to get across. And it feeds into this negative stereotype that people have, not just of blacks, but Mexicans, just the negatives, just any group you can think of has some kind of a negative stereotype, and it just feeds into the negative stereotypes. Please, just, if you're going to be out there, just be safe. Just be safe and respectful.
Yep. And for those that don't know, and I listen to this podcast, you listen to the podcast regularly, every single individual that has ever been on this show, we are all black men. 4 out of the 5 of us are fathers. One of us is even grandfather. Sorry, Rob.
All right.
But the point is, it's like it's not only impacting us as individual black men. We have younger generations that we're trying to bring up, and now we have to help them understand, because of your ethnicity, you're going to face challenges that some of your peers will not. In any event, we are actually here to really discuss a retrospective chosen by Mr. Rob himself. Survivor Series of 2002. Man, when I look back at this time period, this was actually a time period where I was taking a break from wrestling. I don't really know why. I missed all of 2002, it seems like. Because when I go back and watch these shows on the network, it's like, man, I really wasn't paying attention at all. I do remember that was the same year that, The Rock faced Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania. That was the same year that Eric Bischoff came back to WWE. And this was the main event of this show is his brainchild, the Elimination Chamber. So I do remember that, but I know that at the same time, I was kind of in and out. Probably most likely because I was in high school and I was trying to find myself. So, wrestling was here and there. This show, overall thoughts, as far as I'm concerned, it's weird because it just flew by. It seemed like all the matches weren't great, but all the matches seemed to, except the main event, they all seemed to kind of be fast-paced, and they all seemed to be over before, I was expecting them to be. A lot of faces that I had forgotten about. A lot of faces I like to see. It was weird seeing some of the faces, I'll admit. But overall, I enjoyed the pay-per-view. I did. I thought it was really good. And can't wait to see what everybody else thinks. Since Rob, this is your choice. Love to hear your thoughts.
Well, it's always fun going back and looking at these old shows. This is 2020, so we're talking 18 years. And I know that we were talking before we started recording. Me and Mike used to go to these pay-per-views all the time at a place called Billy Joe's Picture Show here in Des Moines. They showed second-run movies, but they would always show the WWE pay-per-views. And it was always great because there would be a huge crowd of people. There'd be hundreds of people there. The telecast would be on a movie screen. And it was really the next best thing to actually being at the show. So I know I saw this one live. But as I'm watching it back, it's like, wow, like you, there were some faces there I had forgotten about. And we'll talk about that. Some of them, it's always funny going back and looking at these shows because there's so many wrestlers who aren't with us anymore.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a big takeaway when I watch some of these old shows is how many of the wrestlers are gone now. But overall, I thought this was a really entertaining show like you. It was a different time. The matches seemed like they were at a faster pace. The length of the matches weren't so long, except for the main event, but you can kind of understand that. This was the first ever Elimination Chamber match on this pay-per-view. This Survivor Series did not have a traditional Survivor Series match. We did not have the 5-on-5 elimination match.
You're right. I didn't even pick up on that. Man, yeah. You're right.
Yeah. They did that for a couple of pay-per-views. I remember Mike and I would get upset that they went away from that format for a while. It just became just another pay-per-view, but they got away from the format. They've since gotten back to it. But yeah, this was at a time where on this particular card, there was not a traditional 5-on-5 elimination Survivor Series match.
Yeah, I think they maybe were trying to change for the new generation. Instead of doing the classic thing, they said, well, we're still going to give you an elimination match. It's just in a chamber. I know, Mike, you were brought in to watch this as well. Your thoughts, just overall, really quick.
This brought me back to a good time of watching wrestling. Just like Rob said, watching it at Billy Joe's Picture Show, room full of people, all just having fun, eating, drinking, just having a good old time. And watching it on the big screen, the environment, it was probably the best time of my wrestling watching life, was those times, those years of watching pay-per-views there at Billy Joe's Picture Show. And I remember watching this show, and this was a good show. This was an entertaining show. I'm glad to be a part of watching this, and it's always fun going back and watching people you haven't seen in a while. A little uncomfortable at times, but this was good.
Yeah. So we're talking WWE Survivor Series 2002 from Madison Square Garden. Took place on November 17th, 2002. Now, I like the Garden crowd. They're always loud. I hate when they use that stupid little Garden entrance with the two doors, and that's it. Now, from what I understand is Madison Square Garden is the most famous arena in the world, quote unquote. But I also come to understand that it's not very big on the inside. So I guess that's why they use that way of the entrance, so they can maximize the attendance and the crowd response in the arena. Now they have used that building for like WrestleMania 20, and they did the whole stage thing. So I know it's possible. But I'm just not a fan of that. I mean, it just looks like this little narrow space. The fans are literally right there. But hey, it is what it is. So the first match. Oh, before we even get into the matches, I know we said it already, but this was the first ever Elimination Chamber. 10 tons of steel. 2 miles of chains. The whole structure is steel. This was also during, right a couple months after the first brand extension. So now we have superstars exclusively on Raw and SmackDown. Hence why you'll see on the show we had 2 different title matches. So the first match kicked off with a 6-man elimination tables match. This is not for any championship. I don't know what the hell it was for. 3-minute warning with Rico versus Bubba Ray and Spike Dudley and Jeff Hardy. I forgot all about 3-minute warning and Rico, of course, with those terrible sideburns. It's just weird, you know. You look at, and I guess I hate to start off on a sour note, but damn, Jamal and Rosie, aka Umaga, who was Jamal, both of them no longer with us. And watching the match, I'm like, damn, Rosie looked just like Roman. Whew.
Yeah, if Roman gained 100 pounds, that's Rosie.
For real. But I thought this was a fun match. Spike Dudley got eliminated first with that nasty spot. He was put face first to a table by both members of 3-minute warning. Jeff Hardy hit a swanton on Rosie through a table on the outside, eliminating him. Umanga, a.k.a. Jamal, hit a splash off the top turnbuckle on Jeff Hardy, which I thought was going to kill Jeff Hardy. That's a big-ass dude. Bubba power bombs Jamal through a table off the top turnbuckle, inside the ring. And then both members come back and help Rico double team Bubba Ray. But then Devon, who is on SmackDown, comes out, makes the save. They hit the 3D on Rico to pick up the win. I thought this was a fun match. There were a couple botches. You know, Rosie, you know, he wasn't the smoothest back then. It makes me kind of understand why he wasn't kept on the roster. And Jamal was. But I still gave the match a B+. I thought it was just a fun match. And I love the fact they brought out Devon at the end, even though there's supposed to be a brand split. But I enjoyed it. Rob, what'd you think?
You know, I really enjoyed this match. I thought it was fast-paced. And these big guys, I mean, Rosie and Jamal, you know, they got around the ring pretty good for being as big as they were. I forgot just how devastatingly big and powerful these guys were. We all know what the Dudleys can do. And like you said, there were some spots that there were some sloppy moments. There was a segment early in the match where Jeff Hardy dove from the rope. And I think it was
Rosie.
Rosie was supposed to catch him, but he kind of missed. And I think I heard the crowd chant, Gabe, you fucked up.
Yeah, you fucked up. Yeah.
You fucked up, yeah.
Because of that, I had to lower the grade. This would have gotten an A from me if not for some of the sloppy moments. But I did still give it an A- because I thought it was a good start. I thought it was entertaining all the way through. And man, Jeff Hardy taking some bumps. And then Hardy did a swanton outside the ring, like from one of the exits outside the ring.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, man,
on the Rosie
spots like the Hardys would do back at that time. So I really enjoyed the match. A-.
I gave this a B+. I thoroughly was enjoying this matchup. It took me back. It's nice to see that. It's always good to see the Dudleys. They're one of my favorite tag teams. Good old little Spike Dudley and Jeff Hardy. He's still quite an extreme wrestler, but back then he was just dangerously extreme. And I kind of forgot how extreme he was back then. You mentioned that swanton off that entryway. There was some botches. Jeff kind of did the he looked like he was going to jump on the railing on the outside, and you could see as he was walking, he tripped, but he still was able to dive off and go into the table. This was just thoroughly enjoying Rico. I didn't probably need to see Rico ever again. Every time I see him, I think of Billy and Chuck. But this was fun, exciting, great way to start the pay-per-view. They started it perfectly. B+ for me.
Right on. Then we get Stacy Keibler, who's at World. I don't remember World, so I guess that's due to me not watching in 2002. It looked just like WWE New York, but I guess it was purchased. And she was Test's manager back in the day. Those who remember Test. And of course, she had to say, you know, all the testicles are here in attendance, and this is like, okay. If that's what they're going to give us of the Attitude Era, of the whole night, that was pretty much all we got. That was kind of, you know, touchy. So, she introduces Saliva, who perform... Always. And, you know, I always wish that Saliva would perform Batista's theme at WrestleMania, because it was just perfect. Like, to me, that would have been like the best outside of CM Punk's theme being played live. I wanted to hear that. Because, I mean, they played Triple H, Motorhead played Triple H to the ring at least 4 times. So you could have Saliva at least once play Batista. But it is what it is. After that, we get the Cruiserweight Championship match. Billy Kidman versus Jamie Noble with Nydia. I forgot about Nydia. She wasn't bad to look at back then. I don't know what she looked like now. But this match was actually decent for a Cruiserweight Championship match. I liked Billy Kidman in WCW more. I was a huge Kidman fan. His matches were great with, you know, Rey Mysterio, and Juventud, and Psychosis, and Conan. You know, all the Cruiserweights. Eddie. He was just a fantastic. Yeah, Malenko. He was just fantastic. You know, Cruiserweight. And the Cruiserweights is like the one thing WCW got right. The Cruiserweight division. Oh my God. Oh, so this match itself for me, I thought was pretty good. I mean, I guess the care factor is the only reason why I gave it the grade I gave it, because the moves were pretty good. I mean, even Jamie Noble, for as small as he was, you know, he was still pretty good in this match. But Kidman wins with the shooting star press and becomes a new Cruiserweight champion. I gave it a C+. I think it was a bad match. I just thought it was middle of the road. Mike, what did you think?
I'm glad you mentioned WCW, because at times it was kind of reminding me of old school WCW with the Cruiserweight division, which was like you said, the best thing WCW could have done. It always started the shows. This took me back to that in some respects. This was a really entertaining Cruiserweight matchup. I knew Kidman could go, and I remember Jamie, but I didn't remember how he was in the ring. So it was good to see him go. I gave this a B+, man. Another B+. This was... The WWE didn't pay a whole lot of attention, it seemed, to the Cruiserweight division. They didn't give them as much credit as they should have gotten. And at some point, the belt just became worthless, and then they just dropped it. But this was exciting. This was entertaining. I did wonder why there was already a blood stain in the ring in this match, because I noticed it. There was a blood stain dead center in the ring. I'm sure it happened on a pre-show match. But this was great. I enjoyed it. B+.
Yeah, I would be on this one. I enjoyed the work. I thought the work in the ring was good, but Jamie Noble and Billy Kidman just weren't guys I really were invested in. I just didn't really like their characters, so it's hard for me to get invested in the match when I just don't really care about the characters. But just judging on the wrestling quality, I thought it was a solid B.
Nice. So then after that, we get a backstage segment with Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. Now, before we even get into any Benoit talk, Kurt Angle, I mean, yes, he was this character back then. He's just like, can you believe that? About Kidman winning the Cruiserweight Championship. And he goes on to say, well, if Kidman can win the Cruiserweight Championship, we can win back the tag team championships. And, him and Benoit get into it, and they end up hugging it out. I don't know. This is kind of one of the shows, maybe because I don't remember it, and it's not like outside of the main event, it's not like one of those shows you go back and watch a lot and that WWE kind of holds in high regard. I wasn't affected by the Benoit being on video, being in the match. It didn't affect me the same way. Yes, it crossed my mind. I'm not being ignorant to the fact of what he did. But I think at some point, I mean, if you're going back that far, 2002, it hadn't happened yet. So maybe it just is what it is. I mean, any thoughts on this segment?
For me,
Go ahead, Rob.
like you, I had a twinge of like, oh wow, there's Chris Benoit. But it wasn't a huge thing for me, really. It's kind of like when I watch The Naked Gun and I see OJ playing Nordberg, it's like, okay, wow, yeah, okay, OJ. But then I'm just like, okay, whatever. Or kind of like, gosh, I lost my train of thought. But, oh yeah, when I'm watching The Cosby Show.
Ooh.
It's like, oh.
Where are you watching that? Because they took that shit off everything.
Yeah. So, now, obviously, their crimes were not, well, you can argue that OJ's crime was as heinous as what Benoit did, that, look, take your choices of which one was more heinous. And I am not in any way downplaying what Bill Cosby was convicted of. I'm just saying that, look, man, I just took it for what it was. This was back in 2002. I was just watching Benoit the wrestler and just leaving it at that. There was that twinge, like you said, but then I was just watching the pay-per-view after that twinge.
Yep.
Exactly. When Benoit first got on the screen, it immediately popped right into the head. Then it went away. Maybe something would pop later. Maybe it would just pop in there like, oh man, it's kind of weird, but it wasn't something that carried on. You'll never ever be able to look at him and not think of, unfortunately, what he did. Mm-hmm. But it didn't dominate the match where I was thinking about it every single second. And of course, seeing Kurt Angle it's just always great to see my Olympic hero out there. Back in the day, you and I, Rob, were just loving every minute Kurt Angle was on the screen. I remember you and I were rooting for Kurt Angle, mainly Kurt Angle. We didn't mind a Benoit win, but we were going for Kurt Angle. So this was just fun to see Kurt back in the day.
Yeah, and I grew up mainly watching WCW before WWE or WWF. So I grew up watching Benoit versus Booker T, Benoit versus Dean Malenko, Benoit versus Jericho, and Eddie. Like those. That's why I love that tag match later on. And we'll get to that. And then the next segment was they went straight from that to Victoria. Looking in the mirror, doing the whole what fairy tale is that from? Not Sleeping Beauty. Snow White. Yeah. The whole mirror on the wall thing, and this Trish Stratus obsession. It seems like anybody that feuded with Trish Stratus was obsessed with her. Like, so Victoria had this sick obsession because between the two of them, they were gonna both be on. Well, one of them was going to be on Playboy, and they chose Trish over her. And then, fast forward 4 years to, 2006, you get Mickie James, who's just obsessed with her as well. So it just seems like maybe it's Vince. He likes the whole girl-on-girl type of action or whatever.
No comment there.
So we get this women's championship hardcore match. I was looking forward to it because of the stipulation. But man, was I disappointed in the results. Jesus. This is what Mike would call a shit show. Now, really quick. I know, Mike, on your countdown, we did the countdowns for the interest music in 2002, did Victoria have that song?
I think what WWE Network has done, because I've noticed this with some people's entrances, they've changed it. Now, I don't know if it's because of the copyright thing.
It's a copyright thing, so...
that might have had something to do with it, because I don't recall that song ever.
Ever, yeah.
I don't recall it.
Yeah, I know the song you mentioned was the one she was most notoriously known for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, maybe they don't have that contract anymore, but... later on tonight, we heard Edge's theme, and it was the real one. So I'm like, I don't know who do they got contracts with and don't, and copyright and all that, but whatever. It didn't help this match any at all. This was Botchamania. They tried. I will give them that they tried with the weapons and the trash can lids and the kendo sticks, and it's just... I don't know. I just felt like it makes me wonder. Like, was Trish Stratus really that good, or did she just have that good of a character where we didn't pay attention? Because me and Rob have done quite a few of these retrospectives, and Trish has been on here, and I'm like, none of these matches are good, from bell to bell. And I don't know. I mean, the ending of this match. Trish went for that bulldog, which I thought she was going to break Victoria's neck. I don't know. And then the finish was Victoria's hitting the fire extinguisher. She sprayed it in the face of Trish, and then she hits a snap suplex and wins the match. What in the hell was that? That's the D. This is the worst match on the card. Hands down. Go ahead, Rob.
I went C-, and look, man, I like both Trish and Victoria, and I know they can do better than this. And like you, I was excited with the stipulation, but this could have just been any regular match. I mean, the hardcore aspect. I guess what I'm saying is that I didn't think it was hardcore enough. If you're going to call a match hardcore, then make it hardcore. I mean, yeah, they had some kendo sticks and the fire extinguisher, but I just didn't feel like it was really hardcore. Like you said, it was botches all over the place. Really lucky to get a C-. I thought the ending was sudden. It was almost where I wondered, was that supposed to happen?
Yeah, because didn't she kick out at the very end? It was like, what are y'all doing? Do y'all know Do y'all know the ending of the match?
Yeah, you all know what 3 means? Because, I felt like that ending wasn't supposed to go that way. Still, I gave it a C-. Maybe I'm being generous, but I did feel like I felt like they were trying, but it just wasn't there.
Come on with it, Mike.
Well, this is still better than anything AEW ever put together in the women's division.
I disagree.
That's a low bar.
It's a low bar, yes. And Rob, you're not being too generous, because I'm the one that's probably being too generous. I gave this a B-.
What the fuck?
I gave it a B-, and I was hovering around C territory, mainly because of Trish. This is early Trish. She, back in the day, was horrible. She was just bad, really bad. As she progressed, she did get better, but you never remember her for her in-ring ability. Victoria, there was definitely some slops there, but I blame more of it on Trish than I do Victoria. I actually enjoyed it. The slops is what brought it down to a B-. I had it at a B, and the slops got it down to a C. The snap suplex, that was odd, and that's ultimately, it came back up, and that's what brought it down to a B- for me. It was way too sudden. I'm probably being extremely generous because I'm a Victoria mark, but for me, it was a B-. I could watch the match again.
I need to refill my drink after that. Jesus.
And I was drinking plenty last night. I still could have never given that match a B-.
A B nothing.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Next match.
So we got the WWE Championship match between Big Show and Brock Lesnar. And to this point, Brock Lesnar had not been pinned, not been submitted. And they kind of were pretty casual about saying that. They didn't make a big deal out of it like they did, Goldberg and his huge streak. They weren't keeping track. I guess they didn't need to. And if they did, people would have already... people were already comparing him to Goldberg because of his appearance. And I think if you tied a streak to his name, then it would have been worse. So it probably was better that they didn't do that. They didn't make a big deal out of him being undefeated. So when he finally did lose, it wasn't a big deal either. I do remember when I first saw Brock Lesnar back in the day, I was like, nah, it's not Goldberg. I thought it was Goldberg because just how he looked. But then once I saw the tattoo on the back, and then he even had the tattoo on the shoulder blade, so I was like, okay, it's not him. But man, he looks just like him. And I would love to see that match. So I thought. In any event, this match was really short. I think this match was shorter than even Brock Lesnar and Goldberg at WrestleMania 33. But it was fast-paced, and Brock did what Brock does. He suplexed Big Show 2 or 3 times. And it looked good. It didn't look sloppy. It didn't look bad. So kudos to them for that. But then we get the biggest part of the match was the turn of Paul Heyman turning on Lesnar and costing Lesnar the championship. Big Show wins with a chokeslam on the steel chair. And he is a new WWE champion, gives Brock Lesnar his first loss. I gave the match a B. I started watching wrestling for the big guys, throwing to the big guys. And I thought this was a great example of that. And I enjoyed it. And the whole storyline, I enjoyed that part. And then seeing, Big Show scary off with Paul Heyman in the limousine and then pulling off. I mean, to me, they knew how to tell stories back in the day where they wouldn't leave you so lost. So now, after watching the show, you kind of want to... I'm looking forward to Raw, is what I'm trying to say, after the pay-per-view. Because you want to know what happens next. I think they've lost track of how to do that. But in any event, Rob, what do you think?
I gave it a B. I don't typically like matches that are short in length, but with guys this big, I kind of understand it. If you're going to make it short, make it good. And they did that. It was physical. I think you already mentioned that Lesnar, just a freak at the time. Well, both guys are freaks. But landing that belly-to-belly on Big Show, landing the F5 on Big Show, it was a good match. And then I had forgotten about the Heyman turn. So that made the match even better because that was a surprise. And like I said, man, it's been 17, 18 years since I've seen this card. And I've seen so many other cards since then. You forget things. I forgot about that turn. I thought that was cool, so I gave it a B.
There was before this match started, there was a little interview segment with Lesnar and Paul. And while they were talking, and I had forgotten, just like you, Rob, how this was going to go down. But based off that, I'm sitting there going, he's going to turn on him. He's going to turn on him. And then he turned. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that kind of sucked. The match was middle road, blah. I wasn't terribly impressed with it. I actually gave it a C. Nothing particularly special about it. And Rob, you may remember this. Back in the day at Billy Joe's, I used to make fun of the Big Show's theme, which is the worst damn theme there has ever been. Hearing that theme almost made me nauseous because I hadn't thought of it in so long. And honestly, the match started with a D for me just for hearing that theme. But the match was middle of the road, C. Nothing special, nothing to remember, just nonsense, blah.
Well, since you mentioned that, make sure you get your countdown list, top 10 worst theme songs. Because we're going to do that show one day.
I already have my list made.
Oh, okay. I'm still.
I've got most of my list done as well. So, yeah, let's do that one because I think that could be a very funny show. There's been some great theme songs, but there's also been some really bad ones.
Really, really bad ones. I think my number one is pretty valid. Okay, so then after that, we got to me, the best match on the card. The Triple Threat Tag Team Championship match between Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero and Chavo Guerrero versus Edge and Rey Mysterio. I forgot Edge and Rey Mysterio ever were a tag team. It's a very odd combination, to say the least. But they complement each other, I guess, because they're made for a great match. This is what I was talking about, bringing me back to my WCW days. Because you got, the only person missing was Malenko on this card. I mean, we get Eddie, Chavo, we get Mysterio, Chris Benoit. It just brought me back, and the fact that this match to me, I feel like at one point I felt like I was watching NXT with how fast paced they were going, the moves, the counters. I can't remember the spot in like the middle of the match. It was like some sunset flip to a power bomb combination. It was really, really fast paced. Benoit was just throwing everybody with those suplexes. And just the near falls, the kick out. I thought I was watching NXT. Like, that's how good this match is. And I implore anybody to go back and watch this match. Seriously. Benoit gets eliminated by Edge with a spear. And then Eddie. So then it comes down to Eddie and Chavo versus Rey and Edge. Eddie taps out Rey with the sharpshooter, which I hadn't seen that since Brett. And I gave the match an A. I love this match. To me, again, best match on the card. A all the way. Mike, what'd you think?
I gave this a B+. This was definitely a fun, entertaining match. Really no mistakes in this match to me. Again, always great to see, Kurt Angle back in the day. Benoit exiting out everything he did. This was just, he's one of the best of all time in this business. Young Edge before he started becoming that rated R superstar. Rey Mysterio before he really started packing on that muscle, bringing back to the WCW days. And the Los Guerreros before they were doing the whole we lie, we cheat, we steal. They just did this match.
But they did have some cheating antics in here with the championship belt. So
yeah, they did, but they weren't saying it. They didn't have that theme music back then. They were acting it, but they weren't embracing it to the crowd and the music like they would become later on when they became faces. This was pre that, but this was just fun. I kind of forgot some of those signs the fans had about the Guerreros mowing lawns and stuff. It's like, oh boy, I forgot about that. This was just exciting and fun. Kurt Angle, by the way, does not suck. I'm glad the Guerreros won it. I would have liked to see Kurt win it, but the Guerreros was an actual tag team, so it was nice to actually have a real tag team instead of a put-together team win. This was exciting. B+.
A from me. Just look at all the talent in this ring. Okay, you have Eddie Guerrero, Hall of Famer. Kurt Angle, Hall of Famer. Edge, Hall of Famer. Rey Mysterio is going to be a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
If not for the heinous crime he committed, Benoit would be a Hall of Famer. Chavo is the only one on the card where, okay...
Maybe not.
So,
yeah, maybe someday when they run out of people.
With all of this talent in the ring, man, how could you miss? These guys delivered in every respect. And Mr. Eric, you talked about that spot. And I wrote this down because I thought it was so amazing. Benoit was doing a German suplex to, let me see. Yeah, to Edge. No, actually, I'm sorry. He was doing I can't remember. He was doing a German suplex, and he was going for a second one. Edge was up on the top rope, and as he did a sunset flip to Benoit and flipped Benoit over, causing him to flip over the guy that he was German suplex. It was just an incredible sequence. These guys just worked in perfect synchronicity, all six of them. And the only thing that stopped me from giving it an A+ is that there were just a couple, this is nitpicky, but there were a couple of moments that didn't go the way they were supposed to. But when that happens, you can't go A+. At least I can't go A+. But I went A. I was thoroughly entertained. And like you, Mr. Eric, I thought this was one of the best matches on the card. Maybe the best.
Yeah. All right. So we get, Lord have mercy, Christopher Nowitzki coming out here, getting way too much time, and they just dragging this thing out. He and Matt Hardy come out. So Chris Nowitzki is claiming New Yorkers are stupid, and Matt Hardy was claiming they were losers. So they ended up compromising, calling them lupids. And they get cut off when we get the entrance theme of one and only Big Papa Pump, the big bad booted daddy himself, Scott Steiner. And I always loved how he came out with the old, like real old school, that I don't know what it's called, but that night thing he wears over his head. Nobody else can pull that off but him, because he just had the look and the pop he got. And the chant of Steiner, and then the even to the dog bark, like Madison Square Garden went ballistic when he came out, and it was known that he had signed, but they still lost their mind when he came out. It's unfortunate that, you know, his run with WWE didn't go well, but that night he was on top. That was awesome, and he of course attacked Matt Hardy and Nowitzki. They were out there just as fodder. And they get tossed around, suplexed. 18 years go by. Scott Steiner don't look like that no more. Not even close. I mean, he tried to cover up his lack of muscle with tattoos, but, we all know. And to this day, I don't know if he's ever admitted to using steroids, but come on, dude.
It's obvious.
Yeah.
It was obvious.
And then we get the first ever Elimination Chamber match. Beforehand, Eric Bischoff had came out and kind of explained the rules to everybody. I think by now everybody knows the rules of how Elimination Chamber works. But this was an original Elimination Chamber match. No, not like the one we see now where the outside is padded. This is steel grated all the way through. There's no padding. I went to one Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, 2010. Yeah. So I got to see two chamber matches of the original chamber still. And I got to say, from my experience seeing it in person, that thing kills. Almost everybody that left that chamber had to be helped out because there were so many flat back spots on that steel grate. And you could just tell, like, it was killing them. Like, more than a Hell in a Cell ever would or could. It's one thing to be thrown into, the side of a cage or on the side, some steel. It's totally different when you're airborne and you fall flat on your back on steel. It doesn't give. So my hat's off to anybody and everybody who's been in the Elimination Chamber match, the original one. This match features Chris Jericho versus Booker T versus Kane versus Shawn Michaels, Rob Van Dam, and Triple H. Triple H is the world heavyweight champion at the time. He was gifted the world heavyweight championship because Eric Bischoff felt like he deserved it the most. Because the brands had just split. Brock Lesnar took the WWE Championship to SmackDown. So Triple H was crowned without a match, crowned World Heavyweight Champion. And to me, before we even get to the match, this speaks to how much, part of the character of Triple H was so impactful, and why I feel like so many things about the characters nowadays, even especially the heels, there's something missing. Because this entrance with Triple H, this is the part where maybe the double doors was the good thing. Seeing him walk out, Ric Flair standing right behind him, and Howard Finkel's voice announcing him, it gave me chills. There was something about that. Seeing him stand there with the belt around his waist, with Flair right behind him, like, I felt he was the man at that time. I just don't get that nowadays. There's a couple times where I want to say maybe like when Roman went to face Triple H at WrestleMania 32, and he had the big entrance. That gave me chills a little bit. But I don't know, recall recently, even before all the COVID stuff, getting chills just from somebody walking to the ring. And the match hadn't even started yet. So I just wanted to put that out there. It doesn't help to have a Motorhead as your theme music either. So Rob Van Dam, Triple H start the match. And they don't waste any time. And kudos to Rob Van Dam, man. He really, really just made the match when he was in it. I think they were stupid for eliminating him as early as they did, because he really got the match going with Triple H. Triple H was busted open within the first 5 minutes of the match. Rob Van Dam was doing monkey flips and rolling thunder on the steel grate on the outside and jumping off the top of pods. But how did y'all not have him throughout the match and get eliminated at the end? Because he was killing it. And that monkey flip off the top of the pod, I was worried because he didn't really get a lot of Triple H in that spin. It was a lot of just him, and I felt bad for his tailbone. Like, dude, you gotta be careful. It's like I said, that steel don't give. Jericho's the first man out of a pod into the match, followed by Booker T and RVD. And this is where I had to bring my grade down the first time. RVD is a frog splash off the top rope. Not really a frog splash, in my opinion. You could see he landed feet first, which is not really a good idea. He grabbed his leg as soon as he did it. Like, man, you could break your leg doing stuff like that. And then Booker T just crawls over and pins him. Like, what the hell is that? That had to be the worst elimination in the whole match. And so then we get Kane. Kane enters the match. Now, this was cool. It kind of helped the grade a little bit. When Kane throws Jericho through the plexiglass of one of the pods, because to that point we thought that that glass was unbreakable because it was quote-unquote bulletproof. But somehow he bounces back soon enough to hit the lion salt on Booker T and eliminate Booker T. And then we get Doo-Doo Brown, Shawn Michaels entering the match. Man, I hated that. Those tights and those boots. Like, don't ever wear that shit no more. That was the worst outfit I've ever seen Shawn Michaels in. Ever. Wow. So Kane was pretty much wrecking shop at that point, but then eventually Shawn Michaels fights back. Kane gets super kicked. He gets pedigreed. And then Jericho, I gotta give kudos to Jericho, because I didn't think he was gonna make it. He hit that lion saw from 3/4 away from the ring and hit it all the way flush. So you can tell, Jericho right now versus Jericho back then. It makes a world of difference. And he eliminates Kane. So then it's like this 2-on-1 battle with, Shawn Michaels versus Triple H and Jericho kind of teaming up against Michaels. But eventually, I want to say it was Jericho got the walls on Triple H, And then Shawn Michaels hit the super kick on Jericho and then pinned Jericho. And so it's down to 1-on-1. And the two go back and forth. Hunter hit that pedigree. And I thought that was it. And nope. Michaels kicks out. He goes for a second pedigree. Counters. Switch in music. And Shawn Michaels is the new World Heavyweight Champion. And that pop was humongous. That was one of the biggest pops I'd ever heard and seen anytime. That Madison Square Garden was firmly behind Shawn Michaels, who had, recently just made a return back to wrestling. So it was a cool moment to see Doo-Doo Brown Shawn get his win with them Dookie stained pants he had on. But for me, the match was the B+. I thought it wasn't the best chamber match. I mean, we've seen so many nowadays, so we're a little jaded. But I think for a first time out, it wasn't bad. I think that they made a mistake not having Rob Van Dam in the match more, because he was really you want that type of person in the match throughout doing your spots. He's your spot guy. So eliminate him before the last guy even gets out. I mean, you didn't even get a Shawn Michaels Rob Van Dam interaction. That's a mistake. I'm sorry, it is. That and the stupid pinfall of him. Booker T pinning him after he hit a move, like, that's dumb. So B+ for me though. Rob, what'd you think?
Well, first of all, I got to start with the fact, as you were telling the story of how Eric Bischoff gifted Triple H with the World Heavyweight Championship, I'm reminded of myself, who was recently gifted a World Championship belt from Mike. So I couldn't help but think about that if you were telling that story. But yeah, the match itself, though, first of all, I was a big Rob Van Dam fan. And I believe Mike was too. We both were fans of his when he was in ECW before he came to WWE. And when he finally made the transition over, I was just hoping that the crowd, I knew that he had the talent and the charisma to get over. I was just hoping that the WWE crowd would accept him, and they did. Mike and I actually had the opportunity to meet him here in Des Moines. He actually met him a time or two before that. But I knew RVD would perform well in this match, but like you, I thought it was kind of curious. When he did that frog splash and the way he landed, I almost wondered if he actually tweaked his knee or hurt his leg on that landing. Because then that cover by Booker T, to me, just seemed to be a way to get RVD out of there. That's just my take on it. Otherwise, that's just a terrible way, or a terrible elimination.
I didn't even think about that. That might have been a call on the spot.
Yeah. Yep.
Which that would make more sense.
Yeah, I mean, just based on what I observed, that was not a good landing. You're not, it's a frog splash. You're not supposed to land on your feet. You're supposed to land on your stomach. So to me, that looked like it could have just been a way to get RVD out of there. Still, it was a bad look, though. It just looked bad, and it took the match down for me.
And it's not to cut you off, but I just want to give kudos to Rob Van Dam, because that was him trying to protect the other wrestler. Because he knows if I put all my weight down on you, I'm going to hurt you and me. More importantly, you, though. So I'm going to try to take as much as I can off of this while doing a stunt. So, kudos to him.
Yeah, definitely a valid point to make. But I still enjoyed the rest of the match. I mean, Triple H started bleeding early in this match. Jericho also bled. Shawn Michaels bled. And by the time we got to the end of the match, like you said, Shawn Michaels had been gone for a while, so the crowd was firmly behind him. At this time, I was not. I was not a Shawn fan at that time. But just watching this back, it was just amazing how the crowd was behind him. So by the time he got into the match, the crowd is into it. It was kind of a tale of two matches. You had the chamber match itself, but by the time we got to the end, Triple H versus Shawn, which, if I remember correctly, was a rematch of a match these guys had at SummerSlam 2002, which was also a decent card. The crowd was just fully invested in this match by this time. Triple H was hated at this time.
Oh, yeah.
Shawn was loved at this time. And we both know that these guys can go in the ring. And like you said, Triple H landed that pedigree. You know that's his finisher. Typically, you know that's an automatic 3 count. But Shawn kicks out. And then when Shawn finally gets the win, the huge pop of the crowd, sometimes the crowd response can raise the quality of the match. If I were grading this match in 2002, I wouldn't be giving it. I'm giving it an A. If this was 2002, I'd probably give it a B or a B minus because I wasn't a fan of Shawn at this time. I'm a little older now, and even though I wouldn't say I'm a Shawn fan, but I'm an appreciation of the fact that he is one of the greatest to ever do it. I may not be a fan, but I got to give credit where it's due. That guy is probably the greatest in-ring performer ever. He's definitely in the conversation. So the story that it told, how it drew the crowd in, the drama of it all, and the ending, I had to give it an A.
As far as A's go, I don't think I've given too many on this show. And the way I define an A, it's got to be a match that I always will remember, that I just always will. I remember this match, which is why it got an A+ for me. This match, I remember just sitting there watching this match wondering, how is this going to go? I mean, how brutal is this going to be? I'm trying to think back who I might have been rooting for. It had to be either RVD or Triple H, because you remember, Rob, I was a Triple H guy, and and you said it. RVD is RVD, but I was pretty sure back then he wasn't going to win this match. But they told a heck of a story, and you've talked about his jumping from the top. Here's the thing. If you watch when he jumps off, he's not able to extend himself because the top of that Elimination Chamber is kind of curving, and he's not able really to stand up fully to leap off to hit that the frog splash. He's not able to do it. So he kind of almost has to just kind of leap out. He's not able to leap out like he normally does. And he knew it in midair. And just like you said, the way he landed, he was trying to protect the wrestler. So big time props to Rob Van Dam. He probably was going to be in. I think they probably were going to have them all in the ring for a while. And then I thought Kane would maybe get eliminated first. But it was RVD. But this was just amazing, exciting. The abuse that they did to themselves for our enjoyment. That's something that I don't think a lot of wrestling fans give enough credit to these people. They are sacrificing themselves for us to cheer them, to boo them, to gain a reaction. That night, these men gave us a reaction, and I've always remembered it is my favorite elimination match, even though I didn't like who won the match. But just an exciting way to end the pay-per-view. Of the pay-per-views we've reviewed, I think this is the most favorable I've been with a pay-per-view.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
I only had that one low grade, and everything else has been a B and an A. So this was just exciting. I've never forgotten that Elimination Chamber. And when you told me what it was, I'm like, oh, boy, that's the one where Shawn won. And just amazing. Awesome. A+++. Well,
you talked about the abuse. I forgot to mention when Triple H catapulted Shawn Michaels through one of the pods. And just the way the glass broke just made that seem way worse than it really was. But, kudos to Shawn, kudos to Jericho, the way they sell. In my opinion, the second Elimination Chamber they ever had at SummerSlam 2003 is my favorite one. I think that one... And then people are going to say, oh, it's because Goldberg is in it. Yes. But guess what? Goldberg didn't win the match. So, there's that. But I thought that one had... Well, no, I'll say this one had just as much, if not more, brutality than the second one. But I just think that one, and there's a couple others. There's one... like in 2009, and then 2009. Those two chamber matches. It was called No Way Out. The pay-per-view was. It was No Way Out, and they had two chamber matches. those are the ones that stick out in my mind as far as Elimination Chamber goes. But I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that Triple H actually did spend 48 hours in a hospital after this match. He was legitimately hurt. I mean, I don't know how he didn't. Triple H over his career, he doesn't talk about it a lot. As much people hate him or thought that he got his way over his career because he was married to. Like, if you really go back and watch his matches, dude sacrificed so much. Like, I watched that street fight with him and Cactus Jack.
Oof.
That's one of the most brutal matches you'll ever watch in WWE history. And there's a part of the match, and I heard in Triple H interview about it, where he gets suplexed onto a pallet. Well, this pallet has an exposed nail. The nail goes directly into his calf, and in and out, and he's bleeding out the whole. Like, I ain't talking about like a little scrape. It's a open, gaping wound, and he's bleeding. He does not stop wrestling. That's the beginning of the match.
Now, how could that happen, though? How can you not check that pallet before the match?
I don't know. But I was worried when they put the pallets down. I'm like, I've worked with pallets. I mean, I know pretty much if anybody's worked in retail, you've seen and worked with pallets before. You know you can't mess around with those. How heavy they can be sometimes. And there are sometimes exposed nails. And man, yeah. So I implore anybody to go back and watch that match. And you tell me different about Triple H, who was at the time, like Rob said, one of the most hated people in the world. That was his goal, though. That was what he wanted. So, I mean, yeah, this was a great show. Definitely had a good time looking back. And that's why, I don't want to always leave it up to me to decide the retrospective. Because I know there's a lot of different views. And you know what? MJ Book, it is your turn, sir. I'm leaving it in your hands. So you got 2 weeks to decide on the next retro, because I don't know when Backlash is. But you got 2 weeks to figure out a retro show, and that will be all up to you, sir. As long as it's on the network and we can watch it. It is your call.
Okay. All right, I'll start thinking.
So, that being said, make sure you check us out on Third Generation Wrestling Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Email us at thirdgenwrestling@gmail.com. Make sure you check out, as always, MJ Books Podcast, the Countdown Podcast, where we counts down different topics. And soon, I'm pretty sure soon he's going to have myself and Rob on there, I hope.
Definitely. I already have an episode planned for Rob. And for you, Mr. Eric, I have an idea for a wrestling themed one. It'll involve probably just your favorite wrestlers. I want to do probably with you. With both of you, I want to do one with favorite WrestleMania main event.
Nice.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Yeah, those are good topics. I wish I could go back and because I listened to your DC countdown show, and I was like, oh, I wish I could have been on here with him. So I need a rebuttal.
You use the Facebook and Twitter and email stuff. You can rebuttal, man. I embrace it.
I told Rob, I was like, he's cheating. He doesn't have anybody to talk back.
Well, now you'll be able to talk back. He's inviting you on.
Yeah. No, but it was fun, though. Actually, I learned some stuff listening to that countdown, because I'm like, man, Mike went way back with the Supermans and the Batmans. Jesus. I didn't even know about some of that stuff, but yeah. So, yeah, make sure y'all check him out. And then, as always, everybody stay safe out there. The world is a crazy place right now with all the protests and riots we got going on. I almost forgot about COVID. That's still going on. Let's not forget about that. And be safe. If you're able to go back to work, make sure you still keep your distance, wash your hands. I shouldn't have to say to grown people to wash their hands, but I guess we have to. And then if you're in a community, just figure out a way to band together. Tearing each other down and tearing the community down is not the way to go. What has happened recently is tragic, but there's no good from creating more tragedy. We need to create a peace. We all need to come together as a people. I, speaking from experience, have somebody that worked in the medical field. Not to get too, gruesome or whatever, but I have seen the inside of a human body. Of every single race. We all look the same on the inside. So there's absolutely no reason why we treat each other the way we do as human beings. We all need to come together. So, that being said, everybody take care, stay safe, and we will speak to you all again probably next week or a week after when Mr. Mike chooses his retrospective. Take care.